What's up everyone? I'm Tim and this is my channel 40 Times Around, where we talk about everything related to motorcycles, camping, travel, and adventure. And lately I've kind of been reanalyzing and rethinking some of my gear. One of the biggest things I look for to shed weight when I'm getting ready for a new adventure is my toolkit. Typically that's the easiest place for me to shed pounds, not just ounces, but pounds. I've been looking more into what can I do without, what has double uses and things like that. Now I'm getting ready for a big trip this summer. Part of getting ready for that trip though is going through all my stuff. And like I said, tools were the obvious choice, so that's where I started. So today I just wanted to talk about what I was able to get rid of, what I absolutely can't do without, and just some general tips and tricks. Anyways, we're gonna jump into my toolkit right after this. So like I said, I'm getting ready for a big trip. I'm super excited about it. More details on that soon. However, part of that is going through my gear, figuring out what might need to be replaced, what still has some room for improvement, all kinds of things like that. Now before we jump into the toolkit, I do want to take a quick second to thank today's sponsor. So if you do any kind of maintenance on your own motorcycle, you know how messy that can get and how difficult it can be to get your hands clean once you've gotten some dirty chain lube on them. Tough Nut is a great way to get rid of that nasty, dirty grime and grease off your hands. The neat thing about it is that its scrubbers are actually walnut shells and not made of pumice. Pumice is essentially a rock and is not really great for your hands. In fact, after using this a few times, I found my hands were actually more moisturized than they were before I used it. I was intrigued by this product as an alternative to orange hand cleaners, and so I reached out to Tough Nut to see if they wanted to work together with me on this video. As I started using this product more and more, I was really impressed with it. I had my doubts because, to be honest with you, the orange hand cleaners, they work pretty good. I was concerned that Tough Nut wasn't going to be quite as effective. After using it a few times, it does a great job removing grease, tar, oil, dirt, chain lube, and anything else you could end up getting on your hands working on your motorcycle. Another neat thing about it is that it's actually biodegradable. It's water-based and solvent-free. So I'm pretty happy with this product, like I said, and if you guys want to check it out, you can actually get 20% off by using the discount code 20FTAround on Amazon. And I'll leave a link to it in the description box down below if you want to check out their product. Anyways, let's get back into the video. Now let's go ahead and talk about what I was able to get rid of from my toolkit. One thing I was carrying was a pair of needle nose vise grips. Now, the reason I liked them so much was that it's two tools, but the weight of one. Needle nose, which of course come in handy, and a pair of vise grips which can actually be used as a clamp too. Now the reason I got rid of it was because honestly over the last year that I've been carrying it on different little trips here and there, I never ended up actually using it. It seemed like a great idea in theory to have with me, but I'm not going to carry something if it's been a year of traveling and weekend excursions, long weekend excursions, and multiple week-long trips. I never used it, so I got rid of it. Another tool I was able to get rid of was my wire strippers. Now, to be honest with you, I never should have been carrying those to begin with because there really isn't much that I can do with those in terms of fixing my bike. My motorcycle has CAN bus. I really can't do much to fix that on the side of the road, so I ditched the wire strippers. It's just not something I'm ever going to be able to use on the side of the road or anywhere, at least not with my bike, so it's not worth carrying. Another item I got rid of were these heavy duty cutters that I was intending to use for this cable that I carry around. I'm going to show you that in a minute. I am still carrying the cable. That is basically to tie something to the bike. If say my case busts loose, if I drop the bike and the case falls off, I'm able to reattach it with this cable and at least get myself to a shop where I can get it properly fixed. Well, the thing is, the only way to cut that cable is with these cutters that I had, these heavy duty cutters, or anything similar to that. It just needs to be a heavy duty cutter. You're not cutting it with scissors and you're not going to cut it with wire strippers. The reason I stopped carrying it was because that was its only intended purpose, and the truth is, I would rather coil up the rest of the cable, tie it in a knot, and not cut it and just leave the slack dangling than carry around this heavy tool that only has one use and only really in one particular situation. So I ditched that too. One more thing, I had a little stubby adjustable wrench. I was using this actually pretty often. There's plenty of opportunity to use this on my bike. However, I have a pair of channel locks that kind of does the same thing and a little bit more. So I ditched the stubby adjustable wrench. It just wasn't the most important tool for me to have with this specific bike. And that brings me to my next very important point. This setup that I have that I'm about to show you is very specific to this motorcycle, and I've built it over the last few years to this motorcycle. It's very important that the tools you're carrying and the tools that you bring fit your motorcycle, are something that you can actually fix on your motorcycle on the side of the road. You know, specialty tools you probably don't need. Things that don't fit your bike. Most of the bits on my bike are Torx bits, so I don't need a bunch of Allen bits or big sockets that aren't the right size for my bike. You know, if I'm riding a Harley Davidson, I don't need a metric set of Allen keys and sockets. It's not gonna fit anything on my bike anyway. So those are just some examples. A trick that I used a few years ago when I first bought this bike and I was putting this kit together and kind of accumulating everything before I started to weed through it and whittle it down. One of the tricks I used was that I'll only do maintenance to this bike out of my toolkit. And that way I know how to use everything that's in my toolkit. But here's the trick. It only ends up in there if I've used it. I'll go downstairs to work on my bike with my full toolkit and my empty tool roll. I'll go ahead and do my oil change, and everything I use to do that oil change goes in the toolkit. My brake pads, another good example of something I might be doing while I'm traveling. So all the tools I need for the brakes are going in there. And eventually over the last few years, I haven't needed to bring down the big tool set. My tool roll has been enough to do any basic maintenance on my bike and any roadside repairs I've encountered. So it's really important not only that you're only carrying what you need, that you do actually have what you need, and you're not carrying things unnecessarily, weighing down your bike, making it dangerous and handled poorly because you have 10 pounds worth of tools that you're never going to use. So with all of that stuff that I was able to eliminate, I actually got rid of 2.5 pounds. This may not sound like a lot, or maybe it does, depending on where you're at with your own camping equipment and how much emphasis you put on weight. I put a lot of emphasis on weight. Don't get me wrong, I carry what I need to carry to be comfortable and safe and have a good time. But I put a lot of thought into weight and how I can shed weight without sacrificing any of those things. 2.5 pounds, typically, once you get to a certain point, that amount of weight is very expensive to shed without just eliminating things. In other words, if you have a tent that weighs 5 pounds and you want to lose 2 pounds there and buy a tent that weighs 3 pounds, you're going to spend a lot of money to do that. Similar to horsepower. The more horsepower you're looking for, the more expensive it gets with each additional horsepower. So I'm pretty impressed that I was able to get rid of about 2.5 pounds and it didn't really cost me anything. Now, something I did spend a little bit of money on to shed an additional 2.5 pounds was this digital torque adapter from AC Delco. I highly recommend that you check something like this out if you're big on tightening things to the correct torque. For me, I am, because I went to school as a motorcycle mechanic, and correct torque is something they really drill into your head. You don't want things loose, and you definitely don't want to over tighten things. There's nothing worse than cranking down on a bolt that gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and then all of a sudden gets really, really loose. So I was actually able to get rid of my full-size torque wrench, which weighed about 2.5 pounds, and traded it down to this, which weighs less than a pound. Right around 2 pounds I was able to shed for not that much money, and to be honest with you, I sold the torque wrench and used the money to buy this digital torque adapter, so it was a total wash for me. I actually ended up a little bit ahead because of it. Something else I have that you're really not going to need unless you ride a BMW is this GS911 Wi-Fi diagnostic tool. This basically just allows me to reset fault codes, reset service reminders, anything like that with my motorcycle that has to do with the electronic system. So this is my tool roll. Let's go ahead and see what's in here. In no order of importance whatsoever, but they're all kind of important. That's what tools are for, right? When you're carrying them on a motorcycle, they should all be important. This octane boost. My bike is pretty finicky when it comes to fuel. Next up would be my socket wrench, just a basic socket wrench, nothing special about that. I do have a screwdriver. I have a lot of Torx bits on my bike. Also have some Allen keys. Now, I said earlier that my bike is primarily Torx bits. However, a lot of the bolt-on accessories are Allen keys. If you own a BMW, you probably know what this is. This is just to take my oil filler cap off. It's a little specific shape that is just the only way you can unscrew the oil filler cap without destroying it. I also have some thread lock, a little extender for the socket wrench. So I actually have 2 extensions. And this is kind of neat because this one is usually enough. If not, this one's good. And if it's really long, I can just put them together and I have a third extension for the price of 2. These are the 2 most common bolt sizes on my bike. In fact, these are the only 2 that I have ever actually needed. This is just some duct tape. If I need it, I don't need a whole roll. So what I have on these 2 wrenches is honestly more than enough duct tape to fix whatever I need to fix. I also have a couple of instructions for certain maintenance tasks on my motorcycle, some things that are pretty likely to need to be done. I'm not carrying around the whole manual. I do travel with a laptop, and on that laptop I do have the full manual for my bike and diagrams and everything, so I have all the information I need to fix anything. This is the most common stuff, and I just leave that in my tool roll. Here is that wire I was talking about. This is a little magnet. This is a bicycle pump. If my tire's a little bit low and I'm not at a gas station that has a pump, this is what I use. It takes a little bit more work, but to be honest with you, I'm okay with that. It's really light and it's 100% reliable. The electric ones, for me, they're not super reliable. I've broken some of them. They're typically pretty heavy for something you're hopefully not using too often. A lot of you have mentioned to me, why don't I use CO2 cartridges? And I could do that. 100% I could do that. It probably weighs about the same, if not less, as my bicycle pump. Then you have to stock CO2 cartridges. And yeah, sure, if you only carry 2 or 3 of them, that's enough to fix your bike up a few times. But even still, once you use them, now you have to go get more, and it's just, to me, it's just a hassle. If you don't want to put in the work to pumping a tire by hand, trust me, it can take a while. My rear tire goes up to 47 pounds. It takes some time, but if you have a flat tire on the side of the road, you get nothing but time anyway. And speaking of tires, these have kept me from having to call a tow truck quite a few times. Spare key for my bike. Now, my bike runs on a key fob. You definitely don't want to leave a spare key fob in your toolkit if it's in your case. The reason I'm able to carry this one, it's the temporary key, which basically it needs to be held in a very specific spot on the bike to even work. Of course, I have some zip ties, channel locks, tire pressure gauge, definitely important. I actually carry a few of these. This is the socket for my spark plugs, rubber gloves. A little baggie of spare nuts, bolts, things like that came off my bike when I was adding bolt-on accessories. I figured, you know what, they fit my bike, I might as well hang on to them. All right, so that's it. That's everything that's in my toolkit and kind of how I went about putting that together. Again, thanks to Tough Nut for sponsoring this video. If you want to check out their product, I'll leave a link to it in the description box down below. It really does come in handy to carry some of this with you. I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell if you haven't already. That way you don't miss anything whenever I post something new about motorcycles, camping, travel, and adventure. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.